Welcome to the Market of Influence, where I talk to influential people about influential things. Today, Karen Freberg, University of Louisville. Let's do it. And welcome to the show, Karen Freberg, the one and only, the one who wrote the book, literally, on social media, professor at University of Louisville. Hi, Karen, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing, Guy?
I am doing well. A lot of people want to be influencers, and before they run out and make the most viral video in history, they better consider thinking about their personal brand. Can you talk a little bit about personal branding? This is something you think, talk, and write a lot about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an area that I'm very passionate about, just not only in teaching and research, but also personally, because I feel that a personal brand may or may not necessarily be the only thing that you need to have, to be successful in this industry, but it is something that helps you stand out. It's not only about what you know and what you can bring to the table based on your expertise, but who knows you and the values and the reputation and the connections that you're able to bring to the table. So personal branding is multifaceted. A lot of times people think, oh, we have a YouTuber, we have this influencer who has millions of followers, but anyone has a personal brand. It's one of our most priceless possessions. It's how people attribute various characteristics and areas of expertise. But there's also areas within your personal brand that you can tap into, like your passion. Like, what are the things that you're really excited about, that you're really like, it doesn't feel like work. It feels that it's part of who you are and your identity, but it's also the ability to share and provide value to others. So a personal brand, I think, has always been associated with influencers and social media, but everyone has a personal brand. It's about how do you market your brand, but how do you utilize it to open up opportunities that you may or may not have thought possible before.
Yeah. Everything I learned about branding and personal branding, I learned from watching wrestling. That's where you take an ordinary person and turn them into the Macho Man, Randy Savage, or The Rock, or Hulk Hogan, or whoever the kids are watching these days. I'm so old. So, Karen, what is the secret sauce? What should people think about when think about developing their own personal brand?
I think I would say that's like a really good question, Guy, but I would have three parts that people need to think about.
Let's
One,
do it.
I think the first thing is you really don't want to be like everyone else. I mean, if everyone has the same personal brand, how do you stand out? You really want to look at what makes you unique and different. Is it the perspectives that you're basically seeing, or the experiences that you've had? And I tell this a lot of times with my students. They may think, well, I may not necessarily have the traditional route, going into the career. I'm like, well, that's a story. That is unique. That is a pinpoint of separating yourself from the crowd. So instead of going where everyone's zagging, go and zig this way, figure out what makes you stand out and don't try to follow and be like everyone else. I would say the second thing that is important about personal branding is that it is something that you have to invest in daily, like an athlete. You can't wake up one day and say, "Oh, I want to be, this expert," and immediately see results the next day. It's kind of like an athlete saying, "I want to go to the Olympics. I'm going to start training the day before the Olympic trials." You have to constantly maintain it and kind of build a routine to build upon your brand, whether it's making connections with the industry professionals, writing, creating content, basically showcasing what you have to offer on social media or in other different platforms, or just figuring out strategically what are your goals and set objectives. And I think the third thing that is important about personal branding is that you really want to make it personal. Like, it is a brand. It is, like what we see in marketing and social media. It's usually companies, organizations, but a personal brand is personal. You want to make sure that you are still utilizing your human characteristics in the age of AI. No one wants to talk to a robot. You want to kind of highlight that personal aspect. So when people get to see your content on social media, and if they meet you in person, they're like, there's no disconnect. We're not seeing who's real or what brand is real or what's not, because you do see that a little bit in the industry. So I think that those are just some things that I think people need to be aware of when it comes to personal branding.
Yeah, super interesting. And we do see the rise of virtual influencers, and they too, the people who are developing these virtual influencers are also thinking about how to brand the personal, these virtual influencers. So super
Yes.
interesting. So I asked you to give me some great examples of personal branding done right. And the first person, and I'm going to mispronounce some of them, is Maha.
Yes. So I met Maha actually 5 years ago in Cannes for the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity. She was there with Gary Vaynerchuk doing PR. If you look at her career and expertise, she is one of the best. I highlighted her in my Discovering Public Relations textbook as a must follow just because of the work that she's been able to do. And I think what the reason why I wanted to highlight her is that she walks the walk and talks the talks, and when you see what she's doing on social media, she understands that personal branding is not just about, okay, a shiny logo or what you're creating content, it's your reputation. And you have to constantly mentor and kind of work on it and finesse it and invest time, energy, and resources in it. So the image that I shared with her is a post that she wrote about her father, and it's focused on her Instagram. And I feel what she does really well for her personal brand is adding that personal element. She has so much global expertise. Has written a best-selling book, but she highlights the human component. When you see a professional at her level, a lot of times you just see only the professional side. You don't get to see what her history or what she likes. And I mean, I got a chance to see, wow, she's an avid tennis player, she loves traveling, or she likes certain things and brands that you may not necessarily see from other people willing to share, but she really does a blend of the professional and personal brand, so it's seamless, it's together. And you see that systematically and strategically executed across her platform. So I wanted to highlight her. Plus, she's an amazing person, to speak with offline as well. She's really engaged. She's very charismatic. So what you see online is what you get in person, which is fantastic. One of the things that I look at for personal brands.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next one is Joey Wagner.
Yes, so Joey is a good friend of mine. So he was one of the first people that I met here in Louisville. He is called Mr. Louisville for many reasons, just because he does everything around the city. But what I like about Joey is he really documents and creates, similar to what Gary Vaynerchuk has talked about a lot of times. He really, like, Joey really kind of showcases, like, oh, I'm at the Derby with Jack Harlow and his crew, or I'm here at the Super Bowl doing these activations. But his area of expertise is in marketing, event planning, social content. And so he really kind of focuses, on building that reputation for himself as being the go person, for events and marketing. And so he's been able to work on some of the biggest accounts here in Louisville and beyond, including a few years ago, he was the person that organized Muhammad Ali's funeral, so he ran that event. So he has, a portfolio and resume to die for, but he still also interjects his human side. So he, meets up with friends, he showcases and advocates for, like, hey, here's a team member that's really doing well on my team, or oh, here's my family, here's what I'm doing with students around, my interns. And so he adds in that personal element as well. But he, again, I think does a really good job of like investing in his personal brand across the board, but documents and creates. So I think that's really important. But also, great guy, must follow if you're interested in event planning, and that's an area of expertise for him. So yeah.
And think about the amazing opportunity when somebody's Mr. Louisville, Mr. Dallas, Mr. Miami, or Mrs. Whatever, the city. There's so many cities, and they all need an advocate, an evangelist who will tell the story of the city. And then when you marry it around a specific community, around specific interests, anybody
Yeah.
who's watching and listening, this is your opportunity. All right. Number three, definitely going to mispronounce this one, Aiko Jones.
No, you got it. Yeah, so Aiko is actually a former student of mine. So Aiko did her undergraduate and graduate degrees at the University of Louisville. She was an amazing volleyball player at the University of Louisville. We have an outstanding team, and I had Aiko in my graduate courses, and she was also our first director of research in the business. But what I like about her in this day of age of NIL, which is of course name, image, likeness, that's a big platform for student athletes to be able to utilize social media to get brand deals and endorsements. And I like what Aiko was doing. She was able to, be able to use her personal brand as a volleyball player. And she actually is going to be heading to Atlanta on a pro volleyball scholarship. She's the first Jamaican volleyball player to ever get a signed contract, in volleyball, which is amazing. But she blends her social media, talking a lot about volleyball, her enthusiasm, as you would imagine with any athlete. But she also highlights what she does, in the day-to-day. She uses her platform for educational purposes. And in the day and age where you're looking at sports and opportunities, this is a great way to kind of showcase your expertise in that particular area to attract new fans, new potential rising stars in the sport. She really has kind of utilized her platform to become a role model. But what she also does on the side is she does do some work with a colleague of mine, Jason Falls, in influencer marketing. So she works with various brands like GE Appliances. And so she's able to kind of build, like, I'm utilizing the practices that I can do with my personal brand, but I'm also helping clients, looking at influencers and working on projects and kind of sharing their story. So she has the ability of kind of being multifaceted. So it's not just one lane that she's in, but she's multidimensional. And she's also able to talk about her personal interests, like which water bottles are great for her. So if you want to, hear about why she likes Walla water bottles compared to other different water bottles, she will be there. But she's very interactive, very engaged, but overall a tremendous athlete, but also a very amazing rock star person.
All right, so Karen, let's talk about this name, image, likeness thing because when Tim Tebow took the Florida Gators, we're both Florida Gators.
Yes.
When he took us to the Promised Land, the Florida Gators made all the money. He got nothing immediately for it. But now every student athlete out there, no matter what the sport, he or she can build a personal brand. So if I'm a runner, if I'm a soccer player, if I'm a volleyball player, not necessarily the big sports everybody's watching beyond the sport itself and beyond my personal story, what other content pillars provide an opportunity for student athletes who are watching or for those students who want to manage their brand for them on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I look back, it's been like a bit 20 plus, well, yeah, about 20 years since I was an athlete at the University of Florida. I was a track and field athlete and shot putter. And I look back and like, I really wish that NIL was there back in the day because I mean, with some of these like non-money making sports compared to football and basketball or even baseball, you really don't have a lot of opportunities to go pro. And so there's a huge opportunity for these other athletes to be able to get resources and kind of build their brand. So in terms of content pillars, I think that, for NIL, yes, there is the content and athlete components that you have available, like in terms of coming, to a tournament with me, or here's, the backside of, looking at what it's like to travel with the teams, et cetera. So there's certain traditional content pillars that you could absolutely showcase, that basically brings the life of the student athlete. But I think with a lot of these athletes, they need to look at as NIL as a springboard for their future career. So where do they see themselves beyond graduation? Because not all of us can be athletes, for 20 plus years. And we need to kind of think about what can we do to utilize our fan base and platform to the next level. So a lot of athletes that I know here at the University of Louisville are interested in broadcasting. So what they've done is kind of utilize the skill sets to say, okay, I'm going to do and tell be a storyteller. I'm going to document. I'm going to showcase. So they're utilizing their platform as a living, breathing portfolio of work. And that's something to keep in mind too for athletes is that your brand is real world experience because you're managing, you're creating, you're engaging, like it's your most important client in many ways is yourself and how you're able to utilize that media training, media relations, crisis communications if need be. So you have all of this wealth of experience so you can utilize your platform and documentation and creating to kind of showcase and be able to get future job opportunities. But then I also think too that with athletes, they have a unique platform of reaching out to brands. Brands are wanting to partner with student athletes, but they just don't know who is, there, who, are enthusiastically fans. And I mean, case in point, like I've been doing some work, like in conversations with GE Appliances, and they said, yeah, like they had no idea that there were so many athletes that love their nugget ice maker that they have, which that was like a whole nother thing, guy. Like I didn't even not know how prominent a nugget ice maker was. I'm like, ice is ice, but that's like a whole nother side conversation. But they realized, wow, there's so many athletes that are talking about this. Like we want to build that relationship. So I think student athletes need to take the initiative to say, I like this brand. I use this on a daily basis or they're very enthusiastic. And so it gives them an opportunity to become either maybe a potential ambassador or even a spokesperson or a collaborator or a partner in campaigns. So those are just some things that I mean, that just come to mind, for me when it comes to NIL and student athletes.
All right, wonderful. Well, now I want to take it from the university to the C-suite. Most people only think about influencers in terms of, consumer products like makeup or food or travel. But the real opportunity where I think this whole industry is going is in the B2B space. And if you are the CEO of a large company. I mean, everybody knows Elon, and
Yes.
many people know Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, but most people cannot name the average CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So if you're CEO, if you're managing the CEOs of a brand, what are some opportunities for them to take away from this conversation?
I think one thing that they could definitely take away is that they really do need to kind of show the human side. I think there's a huge opportunity for CEOs to really open up and learn from some of these influencers about building the bridge between like what is personal and what is professional branding, and how, yes, you want to kind of showcase your role in leadership as a CEO, but people also want to know that you are not a faceless entity, that you are a human being. And I feel that that is sometimes missing at the CEO levels. I mean, you do see a lot of companies and leaders, in different capacities. You see a lot of CMOs, I would say, bridging, the gap between, personal and professional. And one CMO of Autodesk, Dara, she used to be the CMO of Peloton. She does a really good job of building, like that presence, like, here's my family, here's what I'm doing, but oh, I'm also at South by Southwest, I'm at Cannes Lions, I'm doing all these incredible speaking engagements. I think the CEOs can take a lesson from CMOs, because CMOs could potentially become the new CEOs, and kind of they are able to bring that gap, across, for personal branding. So I do think there's still, like, I don't know if it's hesitation from CEOs. They're like, well, I need to be a CEO. I need to have this line and be professional at all cases. But I think in terms of building internal culture and trust and credibility, you need to show that human side. And I think in this day and age, that humanity and the age of AI is what people are craving. And if you have a faceless entity, people are not able to build a relationship. They're not going to be able to trust. And if they see, someone else, maybe your competitor that is doing, more personal branding and engagement, it's going to help with brand recall, it's going to help with brand loyalty, but also it's going to drive business. And so that's something that I think is really important for us to kind of look at for the power of personal branding. It's not just for influencers and YouTubers, it can be utilized in everything, but there has to be a strategy. And it also, most importantly, has to be authentic. You want to make sure that your personal brand is authentic and not, basically propaganda or just a PR spin. In many ways, you want to make sure that what you are presenting is real, because what I've done in previous research is called reputation dissonance. And so, like, we've seen a lot of leaders who say, hey, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm going for, but then their actions speak a whole different language. And so that causes all sorts of crises. And so if you are a CEO wanting to invest in your personal brand, you want to make sure it's consistent, authentic, and focusing on the human aspect of your brand to share with other audiences.
All right. Karen, as always, amazing advice. I'll definitely have you back on the show. Thanks for coming in today and sharing from all of your wealth of knowledge, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.